We're looking at some prospects for the San Francisco 49ers today. First round guys, or are they second round guys? Where do Jahdae Baron, Colston Loveland, and a couple of Oregon prospects grade out strengths, weaknesses? Are they fits for the San Francisco 49ers in the 2025 NFL Draft? Coming at you right now on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there. Let us know you stopped by. Hit that thumbs up. Of course, subscribe if you are a new listener so you can hang out with us every day as we break down all the trades, free agency action, and, of course, NFL draft action this offseason on Locked On 49ers on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we're going to go deep into four. I think we can get four prospects in today, and they're interesting prospects to me because of what I think they could mean for the 49ers in the NFL draft. And I've seen all four of these names, Croc: Jahdae Baron, Colston Loveland, and both Oregon linemen, offensive tackle Josh Conerly and defensive tackle Derrick Harmon. I've seen all these guys in the first round of mocks. I've also seen all these guys in the second round of mocks. And I'm interested to see where you think these guys should go. And we'll talk about our big board as well that we're putting together here for the 2025 NFL draft. But you're the corner. I trust what you say when you're watching defensive backs and cornerbacks and cover guys, Croc. So let's start there. Texas defensive back, it's Jahdae Baron. And what did you see when you put on the tape for the very versatile defensive back listed as a corner? Is he even a corner in the NFL, Croc?
You know, that is a great question, that last part that you asked, because one of my last notes is he a safety? Now, when you put on the 2023 film, I didn't go back a few years, but I went back to last year, and you watch him. He's playing in the nickel, playing in the slot, essentially playing kind of that star role. So he was a guy that I felt like, oh, right away, man, he's comfortable playing in space. And this was the first I watched of him. I didn't watch his outside corner stuff yet. So I'm watching him, man. He's playing good in space. Looks very comfortable. I watched him. All right, if you're playing in space and you're playing in that nickel/star role, you got to be this, physical guy. Are you willing to, fill gaps, be a not a contain guy, but kind of like set the edge? And yeah, he did all those things. I thought the physicality was there. He was coming in, making tackles for loss. He was slicing in. He was fighting with linemen. Like, I was like, okay, aggressive mindset, love it. But he's listed as a corner, so let me find some corner film. So I went to 2024 film. And I watched him, and it's before you told me that he was he was being mocked as a first round guy, I would have never guessed it by watching his film. That didn't even cross my mind. I thought I was watching more of a round 3 kind of guy, maybe even like a round 4 type guy. Like, I didn't see anything special that jumped out for me. I mean, a lot of questions that I put here. Is he twitchy? What is his speed like? I wasn't impressed with what he looked like. Impressed when he was lined up, impressed at the line of scrimmage, although he didn't do that a lot. Played a lot of soft coverage, a lot of zone coverage, a lot of butt to the sideline. And unlike a guy like Will Johnson, right? We watched Will Johnson. One thing that came away right, like, just that I love, even though it's a lot of press, off coverage, even though you and I were saying, man, we would like to see more press, man type stuff, he was a technician. He was smooth. I thought the defense that they ran, it was more man concepts from off, being able to backpedal, turn and run with guys. And with Barron, it seemed like everything was kind of like a step slower, step late. I'm not sure if that was their defense, and that's the tough thing. Are they being asked to play this a certain way? I thought he kind of didn't filter through some of the traffic very well. But the one plus, and I think people may like that. Now, again, I didn't look at his stats at all, so I don't even know what it looks like, but he was in the right place a lot. And we're talking about recovering fumbles. We're talking about intercepting passes. Like, he did that in games, at least the games that I watched of him playing on the outside at corner. But when I think of an NFL corner and what they're going to be asked to do and how they're going to be asked to guard receivers, and how you need to move, he came off to me as someone that is more of a safety. Like I may like him more at the nickel spot because well, you're yes, you play in more space, but if you're smart, which I think he is, I think that's why he was in the right place, the right time a lot. That may be a better suited position for him. So I didn't come away at all that this was a top prospect that I was watching. And I mean, you guys know, man, I've been watching corners for a lot of years with this draft prep stuff. And a lot of times there's just guys that jump off the film. Even the guy, I think we brought up Damon Arnett the other day. Now, I remember when Damon Arnett was coming out of Ohio State. And I was like, man, he has like first round film. Like it looked good. But then he tested. And I'm like, that's not first round testing. Now he's still first round, but based on his testing, I'm like, oh, it's just a little too poor for me. That is more of a day two type guy, and day two because of his film. But with Barron, that stuff, it just didn't cross my mind. Like I never watched the film and said, this is first round film. One more guy I'll reference, Mike Hughes. I believe he was at UCF some years back. And I remember watching him and saying, man, good film. Not the biggest guy. Is he the most burstiest guy or is he the fastest guy? Those things aren't jumping off, but man, the film is still good. And I feel like I like Hughes stuff better. And Hughes was someone I believe he went late first round. I just didn't get great vibes from watching Barron, especially now knowing that he's being mocked at not just the first round. As you were talking, I looked it up when you started saying his names and saying, oh, these guys are mocked first round. I'm like, Barron's being mocked in the first round? They haven't been mocked right here. Pick 17 overall. This is the first mock I clicked on. Pick 17 overall to the Cincinnati Bengals. And this isn't to say that he won't be good, but just a lot of the traits that I think I covet in my cornerbacks, those things didn't jump off the screen to me.
It's amazing, Croc. For how long we've been doing this, and we don't compare notes because we don't want to color each other's opinions on these prospects until we get onto the podcast. And it's amazing how similar we see guys so often. It's very rare that it's way different, right? Because the tape is the tape. And I was really surprised when I watched Jahdae Baron. There's a lot to like. And I've got her actually a really good comp. And actually, I think he's a great fit for the San Francisco 49ers. And we'll see if you like my comp that I've got for Jahdae Baron here. And let me know, is it Jahdae or Jahdae Baron? Let me know in the comments, folks.
Baron.
Baron, yeah. Tons of zone. It's hard to like get any outside cornerback, vibes from him just because we're watching the defense and there's so much zone. And it's like okay. And he was fine out there, it looked like, but I didn't watch. I expected to see something different when people are like talking about him as with Travis Hunter and Will Johnson as the best cornerbacks in the draft. People talking about as the top.
That's
10.
wild. I didn't even that didn't even cross my mind. The only reason why Will Johnson came up in my mind was because he played a lot of off coverage.
Yes.
But it looked drastically different. Just the way he challenged himself in space, being a technician, turning and running with guys, knowing he was super smooth. I feel like each step, like there was no wasted steps with what he did. It was like, oh, this is, I would love to see more press man, but man, this is from an ability standpoint, this is first round stuff. We'll see how he runs. In Travis Hunter, I haven't talked about Travis Hunter. I thought he won more as an athlete as opposed to being a technician at corner. And he's really smart and very instinctual. And I think that helps him a lot. But I would have never put Barron in the realm of those guys.
Yeah. And especially there's nothing that screams to me this guy's going to be a starting. I mean, he could play outside corner, right? But nickel, safety all day. And he's played all those positions. So he was a safety early at Texas, then played nickel in 2023. And then they played him outside corner more. He played, he moved around a little bit, but outside corner mostly in 2024. So he's played all those positions. But when I'm looking at him, I'm watching play, he's clearly going to be an inside guy, nickel or safety to me. And I see a day two. He's probably a day two guy. And remember Egbuka, we talked about him, the wide receiver from Ohio State. It's similar to me where I'm watching him. I'm like, hey, good. Does a lot of stuff. Versatile player. Okay, I like him. But people are putting him in like a top 20 lock. And I was like, man, I don't see it. He's the type of guy you draft in third round. And you're like, oh, look how good he's playing as a third rounder. Not, oh, we're going to draft him in the first round because we're expecting this. And that's where I put Jahdae Baron. And so to me, I'm not touching Jahdae Baron for the 49ers until, I'm pick 43. Maybe we can start talking about this. But what's interesting is some of the comps for him. I see a comp of Brian Branch a lot for Jahdae Baron, which is it's a lofty comp. But guess what? And this kind of ticks me off a little bit thinking about it. How awesome would it be to have Brian Branch in this draft for the 49ers? Because he went pick 45. The Niners are picking 43. Imagine if Brian Branch was there for the 49ers in the second round, right?
See, and I can see that just from a movement standpoint, what it looks like. Baron, Branch was a safety, and the Lions were like, all right, well, yeah, of course we like you at safety, but man, you got some nickel ability as well. What kind of play you in that star player? And he has excelled at that anytime he's been on the field. But he didn't move like someone that you even thought would be one that like the number 3 or 4 corner in a draft. Playing on the outside. It was, hey, no, this is a safety. And I like that you brought him up, because if you told me I was getting Baron to look like Branch and play in the spot that Branch does, I'll be all over that.
Yeah, that's what he is to me. And those types of players fall in the draft too. So, and I still have my comp to give for Jahdae Baron. Final thoughts on Baron. We're going to talk Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan, and a pair of Oregon linemen, Harmon and Conerly Jr. next. So last thoughts on Jahdae Baron. And this is what happens is the inside nickel guys, and I think that's what teams are going to look at. And by the way, combine will be big for Baron. He needs to show what his long speed is, because maybe some questions about that on tape. And how big is he? I've seen him listed 6 feet, 200. I've seen him listed 5'11", 190. And, I don't think he's the biggest guy. I think he's got kind of short arms. And the way he tackles, too, he does miss some tackles. I like how physical he is. And, he's that prototype nickel guy. Again, I like how physical he is. I like how fast he plays. I like him as a tackler, but he will miss some tackles. He kind of doesn't bring his arms. And sometimes maybe short arms is why he misses some tackles. He kind of submarines, and he comes correct, but he brings everything low and kind of submarines at the lower body of offensive players and can miss some tackles there. But again, good player. I don't see the clear first round grade on Jahdae Baron. Last year, again, another guy. Is he outside corner? Can play outside, but we like him inside in Cooper DeJean. Where'd he go? He went pick 40. Brian Branch went pick 45. I like both those players.
And I like Cooper DeJean way more.
Right. Even as a similar prospect where they're going to play inside like we think Jahdae Baron will. I liked both of those players. I thought those guys were clean first round guys. They went pick 40 and 45 in the draft. So Jahdae Baron should be there, in my opinion, for the 49ers. The question is, you're starting to look, okay, Jahdae Baron versus Xavier Watts, if you're looking at him as a safety. And so we're going to start looking at Watts and some other safety prospects potentially for the Niners if they wanted to go that route in round 2 and compare Jahdae Baron there. Not a first round player to me, but a player that I think would be very useful for the 49ers. My comp, Croc, is the guy that we miss on defense for the 49ers, Jimmy Ward.
I can see that. And Jimmy Ward, a little lighter, but he was a terrific, coverage guy. He was very versatile. I feel like the 49ers are still looking for that kind of guy. I need to watch more of Baron and watch through a different lens, because I was just watching him as a corner and I think he's more of a safety. But interesting enough, I'm looking at, some of his draft profile here. Man, I mean, he won the Jim Thorpe Award. He had the highest coverage grade according to Pro Football Focus. I mean, those are things that, and that's why I kind of, with as much football as I watch, especially I watch a lot of college football. I'm not really watching the prospect when I'm watching just games. When you kind of come back and I have a really nice kind of clean slate of a lot of these prospects. So I didn't know he was Jim Thorpe Award winner. I let his film kind of do the talking without having any kind of premature bias towards what he's supposed to be. And I'm kind of glad I did it that way, because I was able to give more of an honest assessment. But I mean, that's impressive things that he's been able to accomplish. I don't see a first round corner.
I totally agree with you 100% there. He can play early. He's an older prospect. He's a 5th-year senior, 24 years old. Could be a negative for some teams. Seems to be a positive for the 49ers in recent history. So that doesn't say anything about if the 49ers would draft him. Solid player, got ball skills, can tackle, can cover. Inside guy, nickel safety. That's what Jahdae Baron is for me. It's pretty simple. I kind of a little disappointed in the next guy too. Tight end Colston Loveland, who people are talking about is a superstar tight end prospect. And the reason I don't like Colston Loveland as a slam dunk top 20 first round pick, Croc, is because it says TE next to his name. This dude can't block. So we're looking at a big wide receiver here, which is fine because that has tons of value. And I think there's a massive gap between wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 in this class. So if you put Tyler Warren, who I'd for sure like more than Colston Loveland, and get that out of the way, could you put Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland before wide receiver 3? Sure. And does he end up going in the first round? Sure. And there's a lot to like about Colston Loveland, man. But I want to see a tight end block somebody. Colston Loveland's like lines up at the H-back, and he's like, it gets pushed back. He's a little better going forward, like in the run, but as a pass protector, non-existent. But athleticism, he's a strider, can get downfield, can make plays after the catch, rangy, can go up and get the football. There's a lot to love about Colston Loveland, and I see why people like him a lot. He's not for me in the top 20 of an NFL draft as a tight end prospect. I don't know if he'll be for the 49ers because I don't think he plays with that physical brand of football. But if you want a rebounder and a athletic tight end who might run really well, then I could see teams falling in love with Colston Loveland. What'd you see on tape with the Michigan tight end?
You just talked about how we typically see things the same, and I think we're on complete opposite ends of the spectrum on Loveland. I loved his film. I loved him as a blocker. I mean, this was one of the better blockers I feel like I've watched coming out of college.
Yeah,
and
a pass protector or a run blocker?
Both.
Really?
I thought he was terrific as a run blocker.
I saw him get pushed back by everybody in the passing game. Maybe I watched the wrong games.
Man, I watched this guy finishing guys to the ground. I watched him firing off the ball. I watched games where it felt like he didn't miss, like whatever his job was, whatever his responsibility was as a blocker, he ain't miss. And I feel like I watched 2-3 games in a row where he was just money on blocking every single time. I watched him as a sniffer. That's kind of like that H-back position that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And one thing I noted, because some guys, they struggle in space to block guys, right? Like they'll come around, like he's a sniffer, he's pulling, and sometimes they miss guys because they have to block guys in space. I mean, he was on them, boom, hands on, taking them out to play. I thought, I mean, one of my first note, let me go back to my notes. My first note says,
keep going, Carl.
I don't think you could play tight end for Michigan and Harbaugh if you don't have a little nasty in you. He does. So that was one of the first things that I noticed right away. Great job as a sniffer, as a puller, consistently makes contact on blocking in space, has ability to make good catches. He has really good body control, possesses soft hands. I think the reason why I'd struggle to take him in the first round is because when I think of a first round receiver, tight end, I would like to see a little bit more ability just to win man matchups at tight end. Like, he's not George Kittle from that standpoint. But he is a solid receiver, but it's not Warren. It's not the kid out of
Brock Bowers.
Definitely it's not Brock Bowers. He's not that, but it's good. He settles in the soft spots of defenses, catches the ball, he has soft hands. There was a terrific one in traffic where the quarterback, I don't know if he's just throwing the ball up and seeing if his guy would come down with it. And he was in traffic and he went up, exposed his body, caught the ball, didn't care about if he was going to get hit or not. I thought there was a lot of good, but I am shocked that we're on such opposite ends of the spectrum with him as a blocker, because I thought as an inline blocker, as a sniffer, they moved him around a lot to where they would motion him and he'd be like on the outside. And I was very impressed with his film.
He's almost a front runner with his physicality to me, Croc, because when it was a defensive end or a linebacker, the physicality wasn't there and he would get pushed back and he would get moved around pretty easily. But when he's downfield, he's like, oh, cool, I'm 6'5", 245, and here's a 190-pound DB. Oh, I'm gonna flex on this dude. I'm gonna finish my run on this DB, right? So that was kind of where I saw the physicality. It was hit or miss. It was kind of depending on who was coming at him, but and I see what you mean. Like, he's a long-legged guy. He's not gonna, third down and 8. Is he gonna Travis Kelce you and route people up and get open? I don't know if he's that necessarily either. But he can give you something after the catch. He gets up to top speed, and he's going to probably run well, as I said. And the ranginess as a receiver. A few drops though as well. I don't know. He just kind of hot and cold as far as times I'm like, oh, I love that, and times I'm like, I don't know, first round guy. Again, a tight end, and so you better be something special for me if I'm going to take you in the top 20. I'm going to take you as a all day long first round player. So he's kind of a second round guy for me. I like Sam Laporta a lot more. He went in the second round, and he was getting mocked in the third round at this point in the draft process, and I liked him a lot more. I thought he was a more complete player and kind of similar athletically to Colston Loveland, and he doesn't have near the physicality I thought as a blocker that Sam Laporta had.
We were both really high on Laporta, and I think that's a good kind of bar or like standard. And now it's tough now because Laporta had a terrific rookie season. Yeah. But heading into it, you and I were both like, oh, really like this guy. Wouldn't mind taking him in the second round, And I didn't get those. I didn't get Laporta vibes from Loveland, but I did know I really liked him. And I'm envisioning him. Is this someone that, it kind of Ross Dwelley a little bit? Now, Ross Dwelley's not a first round pick.
Right.
But, that's kind of the vibe, that body, that frame, movement skill, he catch the ball. Dwelley, he was a willing blocker. The 49ers will put him at that H-back spot, at times and do different things with him. Are you looking to eventually have someone you're drafting to replace Kittle, or are you looking to draft someone that can complement Kittle? And when I say complement, not do different things in Kittle, but just be a legit tight end too, and the 49ers, they just haven't had that. I thought Loveland would come in and be what the 49ers need him to be, which is a very willing, good blocker, inline or sniffer, H-back. And he can catch passes. He could do those things. So, Ross Dwelley would be somebody. You talked about Barron and comparing him to kind of Jimmy Ward. I think Loveland remind me a little of Dwelley. Dwelley I liked. I like Dwelley.
Yeah.
Obviously, nobody loved Dwelley.
Right. And you're not drafting Ross Dwelley in the first round. But that's the tough part for me is I'm trying to find a comp for Colston Loveland. And I don't even know what it would be because I don't know.
Yeah, because he's not Warren. One thing that stood out, you talked about him as a receiver. He is more of a strider. I thought he struggled to kind of change his course, like his path. Once he was kind of running straight, he would just kind of run into a guy to try to change direction as opposed to be able to give him something and go. Like that's when you think of, talk about George Kittle. And I know he was a 5th round pick, but George Kittle had special athletic traits. He has that where he's able to give guys stuff and, at top of the route, he was very loose. I didn't quite get that from Loveland. It was kind of like, once I'm moving straight, I'm kind of moving straight, and it's tough for me to change any type of direction. But if I'm in space, I do a good job of sailing down, catching the ball, like doing those things. I didn't identify him as a legit route runner or man beater. And maybe I need to watch more to really lock in on that. But some of the other stuff that you didn't care for, I think we're on opposite sides.
All right. I like it. We finally have some disagreements here with some prospects. Colston Loveland, Croc likes him a lot more than I do. Let's talk Oregon defensive and offensive linemen, Harmon and Conerly. To me, these were very easy evaluations. We'll see how Croc feels about that next. A couple more players that you see in the first round at times, later first round. They don't quite have the buzz that Barron and Loveland have right now. I might take both of these guys in front of both Barron and Loveland, though, Croc. And to be honest with you, if I was ranking the 4 prospects on today's podcast, I think my number 1 of the 4 would be Josh Conerly, the offensive tackle from Oregon. And I have a feeling, and actually his tape was a little bit different than I expected because I knew he was like not the biggest guy, but
is he the one that got bullied at the Senior Bowl?
Yeah. And so when I watched his tape, it was like, okay, I want to see that. I want to see his anchor because Mike Green put him on his back. And Mike Green, I heard him talk about that rep. And by the way, Mike Green showed up at the Senior Bowl, did that to Josh Conerly, and then pieced out. I think he left after like 1 or 2 days. And he's like, well, I showed what I needed to show. I was a monster for one day, and I'm out of here. But Conerly,
smart agent.
Yeah, and Conerly was good at the Senior Bowl, aside from that one famous rep now. And he was really good at Oregon. If we're doing 49ers comps, this one doesn't really work because of body type, but I think people are going to love and hate Josh Conerly as a prospect, because I think Kyle Shanahan will love Josh Conerly, because I think Conerly is a really good run blocker, and I think he fits that outside zone stuff, his athleticism to be able to get out on the move and block people. He's much better going forward as a run blocker than his anchor as a pass blocker. And that sounds a lot like Mike McGlinchey to me. And there, obviously, Mike McGlinchey was more a leverage problem because he was 6'7" or whatever he was. Josh Conerly's 6'4". He's got the arm length you're looking for. He's listed, I think, 6'4", 315. I think it was very similar to that at the Senior Bowl with his official weigh-ins, and did hit that 34-inch arm length mark. And so he's a athletic offensive lineman. He's more of a positional pass blocker. I worry about his anchor, and maybe it's because I was looking for it, but he didn't have a strong anchor in pass protection, which is why I make the comp to Mike McGlinchey, because Mike McGlinchey would have those problems in pass protection sometimes, a better run blocker than pass blocker. But I think there's potential for more with Josh Conerly, just to get a little bit stronger, continue to get better. He was actually I think he was a high school running back. And so this is a guy who's still growing, and you see that athleticism from him on the field at Oregon. So a player I like a lot. If he's there at 43 and the 49ers don't draft an offensive tackle in the first round, he'd be a player I'd be very interested in. And I wouldn't be shocked if teams are like, well, I like his athleticism, and maybe he can even play center or something like that. So some versatility there for what he is, but I think he could stick at tackle. But again, anchor is the big question. Love the athleticism, can get out and run. Great fit for those teams that like to do the wide zone, get their offensive linemen on the move and hit people on the move. He can absolutely do that. I think he was an easy evaluation for me, a player I like a lot. Not a player I'm drafting in the top half of the first round, but I could see him go late first round. And, if he's there at 43, it'd be hard to pass up if he didn't get an offensive tackle in the first round, because there might not be many prospects left where he's like, this guy actually can play offensive tackle in the NFL.
Before we started recording, you asked, like, hey, you watch prospects? I'm like, yeah, but I don't have a whole lot on Conerly. And I think the reason why was because watching his film, there was nothing that stood out great to me, but nothing that was bad to me. It was just like, it was very consistent. It was very clean. I thought the film was clean. He did a lot of things very well, but there wasn't those just, I knocked this guy out, I have a tough time because I compare all these offensive linemen to Simmons and Campbell, who I love, especially Simmons. He's probably my draft crush for sure, aside from his injury. But watching Simmons is just like, man, it just jumps out, man. Oh, he's so good at this, so good. Oh, terrific athlete, great in space. And when you watch a guy like Conerly, like, it's not bad at all. And I think because of that, I do feel like he'll be a good pro. But I was waiting for the things that were going to really jump out to where it's like, okay, this is a potential 11 overall pick, because some of the things I'm seeing on him, there are people that really like him. There are some people like, is he my tackle one in this class? And I just did not get those vibes, especially knowing that Campbell and Simmons are out there. But it was good, and there was a lot of good, and I thought he moved well. I thought he talk about just being sound with his assignments. I thought he was good with that. There were times where they pulled and asked him to be out in space. I thought he did that very well. I like the comp of someone like McGlinchey, and I think we can all agree that Kyle Shanahan, he kind of likes those type of guys. There are a lot of people. I see the messages on YouTube. I see it on social media, and they come across as if the 49ers don't invest in the offensive line. I'm just like, that's just not true. But the issue is they probably don't invest in the offensive lineman that we like or we would want. And because Kyle Shanahan prioritizes something just a little bit different. So, they drafted Mike McGlinchey number 9 overall. Is that them not trying to improve the offensive line? They drafted Banks 2nd round. And I think some of the other guys they could definitely draft higher. But you got to remember too, when you take Trey Lance at number 3 overall, then the next 2 drafts, you don't have a 1st round pick. It's a little harder to find that tackle that you really like. And then last year, where everybody wanted a tackle, it's like, well, I'm picking 31st overall, So I don't think it's that the 49ers wouldn't take offensive tackle or prioritize it in a draft. I think when they've had the opportunity, they've taken guys high. If they weren't addressing their defensive line, which they've done a ton of as well. Watching Loveland, he does come across as someone though that they would like. Do they love him? And I think that's great. I think they would love Simmons, but I also think if Simmons weren't hurt, he would never fall to 11. Like he would go top 5.
Yeah, and it's all power based. He does have thinner legs, so you worry that Conerly can't develop that. And one thing that Kyle Shanahan might not like as much about Conerly is there wasn't a lot of finish and nasty there either. So a little bit of a finesse kind of a tackle.
And that's some air raid. When you get a lot of the guys now, again, matter of fact, I just passed one of my my midterm exam on my air raid certification.
Nice.
But the air raid, it's kind of just like vertical pass set, get in front of your guy, swat him off, ball's gonna get out of the hands quick. Even in the run game, it's kind of like just get in their way, wall them off, or man block them this way, or zone block this way. There's not a whole lot of move forward, drive this dude 10 yards down the field in the sense of what they're asking of, their air raid blocking. And I think there a lot around the college football landscape. There's a lot of that, like just a lot of, hey, just get in your guys' way. And I think that aligns kind of with the 49ers. Trent Williams does this thing, but for the most part, it's, Kyle relies on timing, rhythm, throws, all those things. So a lot of people, they want them to have just these amazing, pass protectors. And I do too, of course, but I don't know if that's what he's asking of his guys. I think that's why he may prioritize the run blocking more than pass blocking, because he's thinking, hey, my quarterback's going to get the ball out of his hands quick. So can you be athletic enough to kind of play in spade? Can you handle speed? Can you handle a little bit of speed to power? And by the time you are eventually beat, if you do get beat, well, the ball's out of the hands because, Brock Purdy, he's really heady. He's good pre-snap, post-snap, understands where he wants to go with the ball, decision-making. Those are the things that he wants from Brock. Those are the things that he wants from his quarterback in general, as opposed to having just this, offense where it's going to be reliant on guys being able to hold up for a really long time. So, I think from that standpoint, when you were talking about Conley and just not a whole lot of bully ball going on with him, I wonder if the 49ers would ask him to be a bully.
We don't have a lot of time left to get to Derrick Harmon, and we're going to talk a lot more about defensive tackles in this class. I want to give you a quick short version on Derrick Harmon and where he's at, and he completes the foursome of, to me, second round guys in all 4 of these guys. A lot to like. I can see why teams would really love some of these players, and there's some outliers and some evaluators and some mock drafters that have Jahdae Baron as a top 10 guy, have Colston Loveland as a top 10 guy. Some people that really love Derrick Harmon.
Loveland, they got Loveland going top 10.
I've seen people that say Loveland's the best tight end. He's better than Warren, and that he's a top 10 guy. I
am not a big fan of the pure with Warren. Like Warren is terrific at the catch point, body control. Like he does all those things. I thought his usage and how versatile he was amazing. I've seen better tight ends that can just win by themselves than Warren. So I could see how you can kind of lump him and Loveland together if you're prioritizing like certain different things.
I want to find it now. I'm interested. Matt Miller of ESPN. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. Matt Miller of ESPN said that he had only 12 players had first round grades for him in this class. And I agree with, Matt Miller's fine. He does a lot of good work for 49ers fan, by the way. Does a lot of good work at ESPN and his evaluations. I disagree with him here for a couple of things. And so here it is. Number 10 and number 11 on his only 12 players that have first round grades in this class. 10 and 11 are Jahdae Baron and Colston Loveland.
Then I might only have 9 first round grades because I don't have a first round grade for those 2 guys.
We'll save the Derrick Harmon. We'll talk more about him later. He's clearly a second round guy for me. Again, the 49ers drafted a second round guy last year, and kind of by their own admission. I don't know if they said it exactly, but he was a second round guy for them too. But you don't get 32 clean first round guys every year, right? So Ricky Pearsall, I think he was a second round guy for the 49ers too, right? But they liked him and they had to draft him because you got to draft somebody. And I think that's kind of where these guys all are for me. I wouldn't be shocked if any of them go in the first round, but for me, I'm looking at them at pick 43 for the 49ers. These are, and I'm not even probably trying to trade up to get them necessarily. Harmon, though, a bigger bodied 6'5", 310 defensive tackle. I was disappointed. A lot of 49ers fans, a lot of our listeners like, oh, Derrick Harmon. I was like, okay, but really hot and cold. Even more so than
I think we may agree on this one more than we did Loveland for sure.
Yeah, too often he was moved out of the way as a run defender, and he'll have those reps where he beats guys and he has leverage, but he plays a little high. He's a taller defensive tackle. Got blocked too many times for me. He did make some plays, but the consistency wasn't there. And
what's the secondary moves with him? Like it felt like
whatever
his initial, this is my move, and if it didn't work, it's just like, why are you just standing there?
Exactly. No, 100%. Yeah, he'd have that first move, and he's got a nice little burst. He's athletic and he's big. And if he didn't win right away, he kind of didn't really win. I didn't really see him able to move and get off his initial move and get off his block to make a play at the quarterback or against the run. He got walled off too often. He got moved back too often. And sometimes you play with leverage and look good and get a little push. But again, initial burst. And if he didn't really win with that, then he didn't win. And he lost too much for me, even though there were some nice wins and a player to work with. But if I had to rank these four guys, again, number 1 is Conerly. Number 4 is probably Harmon. And then probably Barron and Colston are in there as guys that you could talk me into, but I'm not drafting them in the first round. But, 43 would be very interesting for. And I think that's kind of the right area, the back end of the top 50 for all these guys for me, where I'd start to rank them. So we'll break them all down. We'll keep adding to our big board. We will keep doing some cross checks and mock drafts and really figure out and hammer out this draft class and put together our Locked On 49ers big board. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen. And Croc and I back tomorrow. Is Kyle Shanahan entering warm seat, potentially hot seat territory on tomorrow's episode of Locked On 49ers?